So we're going to kind of go over, start from the beginning. We've, as we were just talking, we did our first session, although there on that slide it says session one. This is actually session two, but I guess it is session one to most of you. Since we haven't been able to get that video out, we might end up just doing it again at the tail end of these sessions. So I'm going to give you kind of an overview of what we're doing and who we are and why we're here and all of that good stuff. I'm on your right there. That is me. I am still Brock Masterson, the VP of Product, last time I checked at least. And to my left on the screen, sitting across the table, Mr. Daniel Smith, who is, in my heart at least, our Chief Solutioneer. Daniel, have you made any inroads on updating your title to that? Or?
No,
No?
I haven't.
Well, let me know. We split this program into two different areas. We first started developing it at the end of last year, call it November, developing it November of last year and building this out. And we felt there was almost like two different tracks or two different programs to this. And the first one on your left, which we're calling the Field Advantage, is I did almost 9 hours of interviews with our top acoustic reps. And I asked the same questions to every single representative. I recorded all of those sessions. I went in and analyzed those. Then I cross-referenced all the answers. And it turns out there are 6 key areas in which almost all of those reps agreed upon of what makes them successful when it comes to acoustics. And then over the last year also having, Daniel talking to different people. And I think at this point, I think I said this last time, but, Daniel has probably thousands of hours of consulting and solutioning with different sales reps from all over the country. And he has such an amazing knowledge base, and we've had such a, good free flow of information. Yeah, go ahead. Can I hear my name? No? We have such a good kind of free-flowing information that Daniel picked out 6 topics along with the help of Dalton and Keith and some other folks of things that we think we can cover from more of the confidence and technical side of things. So the whole point of this, earlier opportunities, protecting specs, and higher value work. Go ahead, Daniel. I'm going to turn this one over to Daniel, and this is a little bit of a recap of what we challenged people with the last time. And I understand that a lot of people are potentially unfamiliar with the session or what we were asking. And so I think this would be a nice point maybe to Daniel. I'll have him do a 2 or 3 minute kind of recap and activate session, just because that session was just so important.
Yeah, so last session we talked about consults and how to get the most out of your consults. And we put a challenge out at the end to within 30 days to have everybody schedule or join one consult, whether it's one of your team members has a consult, you join it so that you can see what they're all about, see how they're run and how they operate. And then within 60 days to identify a new designer or architect that you haven't been able to get into and try and use the consult as your entry point into the firm or an opportunity. And then our last piece of what we wanted from you guys was continuous feedback on the consults. We have on here share positive experiences, but we also love to hear negative experiences because we can't, if there's negative experiences out there, we can't change that and get better if we don't know about them. The getting the most out of your consult, it was recorded. It's going to be sent out, but Keith had mentioned we may revisit this one and do this one again because we feel that it's so important.
And then to put a bow on it, Daniel, do you remember how much more effective we are out in the field when we do a consult?
Yeah. So one of the things we talked about was the opportunities with consults. We took everything that was closed out last year, both won and lost. And if a consult was attached to it, we had double the close rate and almost 50% increase in deal size if a consult was attached. So you close more of them and they're bigger deals when we do consults. So that's why we feel it's so important. And we'll probably come back and revisit this one and do it again.
So the first one that I'm covering is trust and positioning. And we're going to go into obviously more detail on what those two things mean. But just kind of think to yourself, what does that mean to you? Right? You know, the whole intention of the program is to create, you know, opportunities earlier, ask better questions, things like that. And, you know, one thing that I really want to just make sure we're all on the same page here is this is an a la carte little 30 minutes that we're doing. You know, there's certain things that Daniel's going to cover on reflective ceiling plan or sequencing of wood, or I'm going to cover on how to build trust, and pick whatever resonates with you and take that with you. And if you kind of divert from that and that's just not part of your process, that's okay too. But it's also a nice level set that we can have conversations with our colleagues and at least be on the same page of kind of what information is out there and what's making some people successful and what's challenging some folks. What are we not covering? We're not going to cover NRC or reverberation rates. We're not going to talk about, you know, the thickness of the HDF that's inside of the wood product. We're not going to talk about projects. We're not going to talk about any of that stuff. You know, we're going to talk about what happens before all that. You know, every one of you, it starts before the project. And we say this a lot, but these 12 sessions that we're doing are not focused on the first project that you get or the second project. This session is focused on the third, the fourth, the 10th project. So many of you have been really successful already in the first couple of years and knocked down some really cool projects. But how do we keep that momentum going? And how do we earn the business of people for, let's say, the rest of their career? So we've had some home runs and we've had some singles, and what we're trying to do is make this repeatable so that we get estimates coming in every month. We get those doubles, we get those triples, and occasionally, if we're doing our job, we get those $500,000 grand slams. So from everything we've seen, it's the interviews that I've done, it's the data that I've collected over 6 years. Daniel analyzes the actual deals that are coming in every day. But the reps who win consistently, specifically with acoustics, is they don't focus on the product. They don't focus on it as a solution. They don't focus on it as a system. They become the trusted advisor to people, right? They become kind of the consultant. And initially, when you kind of hear that, it's a little bit scary when you say like, oh my gosh, I have to become the acoustics consultant. We're gonna actually talk about that, what that means. So really this session is pretty simple. You know, how is trust fundamentally created and then specified out in the field? So to get everyone kind of activated early, I think we're up to almost 20 folks on with us. We're going to activate your brain a little bit. We want some responses from you all. So there's that question at the bottom. I'm going to launch a poll right now. We'll give everyone, let's say 20 seconds. And I would love for everyone to engage with this poll. Let's see if this works. It's the first time I'm doing it. So see if you can click on that link. If anyone has any issues, let me know.
I'm not seeing a link yet.
It popped up in the bottom of our screen over here in the bottom right.
Your main, yeah. Well, I don't know about others. I can see your main slide.
It popped up on my, like maybe 2/3 to the right.
Oh yeah, we got votes coming in.
Oh, okay.
Daniel, the DJ.
That's your phone, no mine.
How many votes we got in? I'm sitting here forever, baby. All right. Got 20 votes in. Daniel, what's the winner there?
I don't know how to find it. You gotta tell me where to find it.
Number one came in as relationships. I love that. So, relationships. I have invested heavily in lunches and my personality. So that's a good answer. I like that. A bunch of folks think that. Two people voted for, I know every dimension, every certification, and every acronym in our entire acoustics catalog. That's awesome. So people out there are really well versed in everything. One person put other, so that could be sexy marketing, reliability, great products. Not gonna lead you down the wrong road there. It's not a bait and switch, but we believe the answer is F. They trust that when something comes up, you will deliver. It's like being reliable. It's not having all the answers. It's not having the cheapest price, right? It's that consistency. It's that reliability. It's every time. I remember an anecdote talking in one of my interviews, and somebody said, I have architects that will call me to compare other competitors' products against each other, where maybe mine's not even in the conversation or in the spec. Like that's how much that they had become a consultant when it came to wall coverings or vinyl, wood, or acoustics. And I think that's kind of the mark of gaining someone's trust, is that they know that they can call you and you're not going to try to sell them on a system or a solution. So, it's being honest about lead times, it's sharing past experiences. So, all of those things, A through F, and all the things inside F contribute to a great sale and a great relationship. But the common theme that came up when talking to all the different reps was creating that level of that trust and that really strong relationship. So what's weird is you can kind of get tend towards this backwards thinking, and you're sitting there and you're looking at I'm old, so I'll call it a Rolodex, but you go, holy crap, I need to generate some estimates. I need to generate some specs. Who can I call? And it's like, okay, well, they don't necessarily trust me that I'm the expert on acoustics. So I'm going to go study a bunch of cut sheets, and then I'm going to make some calls and see if I can answer those questions. And I think the answer to that is actually reversed, is that trust is created before they're ever going to entertain the possibility of adding your products to their specs. So I thought it'd be interesting to kind of turn it over to Dan at this point and ask Dan a question, just because he talks to so many different contractors and architects in the field. So what do you see from your side when a rep is trusted versus not trusted? Like, how does that come out in your daily life?
What we see most often is that there isn't a whole lot of questions when there's trust. It's they trust that the problem is, if there is a problem around it, it's going to be solved. As where when there's less trust, or you're just beginning to build that trust, there's so many questions, and the questions get very detailed, and the questions get very almost into the weeds of like, it doesn't really quite matter, but they just don't know if you know enough, and they don't have that trust yet. But after you build that trust, it's, will this product work? Yeah, perfect. Tell me how to spec it. Like, they don't ask any other questions beyond that, right? And so that's where trust really gets built, is questions stop coming in, because they trust that no matter what comes up of this project, it's going to be handled in the right way. And so it takes those first conversations with all of those questions to really build up. But once trust is established, a lot of times there's no need to even call you. They're just, I'm going to spec this and put it in, because I already know that they're going to handle it and they're going to take care of it the way that I want it to be taken care of. And so that's when you start getting specified on projects that you don't even know about. Then all of a sudden a quote request comes in because someone specified you and you've never heard of that project before. That's when trust is truly there, and you know you've built it with that designer or that architect.
Yeah, oddly enough, trust is saying, I don't know, let's find out. I'm gonna bring in my, team of experts. And what's nice about that, I guess that kind of goes back to your consulting deck, is that that shows trust and credibility by saying that. But then also you get educated in that 15 or 30-minute session, and then you become better, and it's really cyclical. So you create more consults, you learn in those consults, and then you start creating more and learning more. And next thing you know, exponentially, you're a much better kind of acoustic advisor at that point.
Yeah.
And I also think like, it's more, you become more relaxed that way. You're not always just focused on the numbers and creating connections and relationships and that sort of thing. You are very confident and comfortable in those sessions. And to your point, you become almost, in my world, we'd call it sticky, right? You're safe to spec, and no matter what, they're going to copy and paste your acoustic solutions and what you offer with those solutions directly from project to project.
Yeah, spec momentum is really, that doesn't come without trust. And so that's what we're working on trying to build here.
So, what we had learned too you can leave it here. What we learned is that, trust is built by a few consistent behaviors. It's not just like, I'm trusted or I want to be trusted. Like, what are the things that go into that trust? And, this is kind of that nature of that sale. It starts with reliability, just being reliable, showing up, and we'll kind of discuss what that means later, which builds trust. Trust gets you opportunities, which turns into specs and orders. Looks like we have a question. Let's take a question.
Oh, yes. I just raised my hand because I was curious if, Dan, have you been brought in on any calls for just product presentations? Because I've been thinking that might be a good opportunity to just like introduce you to clients and, maybe set up like just like a 10-minute, if you have a whole hour, just be like, hey, we're going to, connect with the Sonos team just so you can meet them, so you can be familiar with them prior to even like bringing up an exact project.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often, but occasionally people are like interested. They just want to know more about a specific product, and typically it's wood. And it is a great way to do that. And a lot of times they'll tell you they don't have any. They're just interested in the product, or you get them interested in the product. One of the things that I always try to do in those, and just if you don't want me to, tell me, but is after we kind of go through the product and we present what it is and how it's built and the benefits and everything, I ask them straight out, what projects do you have right now that you're working on that this would be a good fit for? And I think that's one question that doesn't get asked a lot. And so I always try to do that. And if you don't want me to, tell me. Like, happy to not ask that question, because at the end of the day, they're your clients and not mine. But it is a great way to get introduced, and then you can start to uncover projects with just a product presentation. You'd be surprised at how many times that results in a project that they weren't thinking of one of our products for, but as you go through it, you build that up. So
Yeah, and it was interesting developing this slide, and I actually do some product presentations for mode reps outside of Nashville from some of our other distributors. And I know they really like that because they don't feel like they have to be the expert in those presentations. It can be a quick 15 minutes. And it also seems to like add a little like gravitas to the little session that they're having with architects. So like, oh, we have the like actual like manufacturer on the phone from the solutions team or the product team or whatever it is, and raises that level of comfortability. When we were developing this slide, it was interesting because kind of reflected on my history, and Dan mentioned this last time, but we were both in sales for a decent portion of our career. In the early 2000s, I was a part of rolling out the Apple stores way back in the day in the late 90s and early 2000s, and did some of the actual sales training. And it made me think about some of that early sales training, which now I integrate into my professional life in almost every single meeting that I do, including this one, but also my personal life. But what we taught was like the, the five leg of the stool approach, right? And so that is approach, probe, present, listen, and then end. And magically that spells out Apple. But, for me, that approach now in my life is like, how do I prepare to go in to start having these conversations, and how do I present myself, and what do I educate myself on, and all those different things. Then you get to probe, ask questions, try to uncover. And this goes back to Keith's marketing plan, right? There's fear and love. Like what are they happy about? What's challenging? What do they like? What do they not like? And then, present potential value-based opportunities for them. Listen to hear what they say and then end it. How, figure out what that next engagement is after that. How do you keep that conversation going? And, when I was doing that training, I can't tell you how many times salespeople would say, well, how do I convince them? And this was a long time ago. So, we had like 3 devices at that point. It was like desktop and laptop. That's all we had, right? There was no phones or anything. But they would say, how do I convince someone to buy a Mac instead of a PC? So what do you think my answer was? And Apple's answer to that was, Daniel?
I just from what I know about Apple, my guess is that the answer had something to do with not selling them a computer, but selling them a way of life.
Yeah, but essentially the answer is you don't. That's not your customer. You say, are you happy with it? What do you do with it? And they say, oh, I send emails to my grandkids and I update my budget on my spreadsheet, and that's working out great for you. Then great, that's a perfect solution for you. I wouldn't switch, right? And so that was, and that's very much how I think like our acoustic selling strategy goes as well. Like we have to earn that value. We want to be value based. So these are the behaviors inside of reliability, right? So you have responsiveness, follow through, accuracy, honesty. So responsiveness, right? Not just speed, but accurate, honest speed. If you think about it, fast and wrong will destroy you out in the sales field. And slow and silent just kills the trust that you're not reliable anymore. But it's that fast and accurate that really allows you to gain that trust from your prospects and from your clients. But, with that speed, then, comes responsibility. So it's acknowledging quickly, setting expectations, and ultimately delivering what you said you would. And as we all know, it feels like our customers are constantly waiting to the last second. Oh my gosh, we need acoustics. We have 6 weeks. Kind of what can you do for me? And a lot of times it's the fastest response to that, and it's fastest, accurate, and helpful response to that is going to win that project. Every year I interview a handful of architects about various things. Where do you go to look for products? What questions do you ask? What was the most recent new product that you specified? All of those different things. And I remember talking to an interior designer and I said, how often does a product stay in a spec just because Material Bank got it for you in time for your client meeting the next day? And she grinned and said, a lot more than you think, right? So it's, oh my gosh, I have to pick some furniture for this conference room or whatever. I'm going to get this, kit from Material Bank, and the client goes, I love it. It's just going to stay in the spec forever. And so it's being kind of quick to that trigger. And to kind of pass along one of the stories that I remember from my chats with different people is, and they might be here, but a rep was saying that every client meeting that they have, they actually follow up that client meeting directly there in that moment. And they might stay 5 minutes in the conference room, or they might go out to the lobby for 10 minutes, or you might get all the way to the car, or whatever that looks like, but they follow up immediately. They are going to order that sample immediately, or they are going to schedule that consult immediately. Or they're going to schedule that email. They're going to hop into email. They're going to write the email and say, send this at 4 p.m. later and thank them for their time, sort of thing. It's what is that quick response? And I have the quote here. So this is the quote. If that sample box shows up next day, you just became the most reliable person in the world. And I thought that was a really cool quote. And then up on the screen, of course, you see some of the other quotes then that I pulled from some of those interviews. If I miss something or respond late, I feel it immediately because that's how trust slips. It's not magic. It's just doing what you say you would do. So we're going to switch over a little bit. So that was kind of the trust portion. And now we're going to talk a little bit about positioning. And I know we're up against the 3:30 mark here. We're going to have plenty of time for Q&A if you can stay with us. But it was interesting as I was diving into this because in my world of kind of marketing and product, positioning to me is a lot of times product positioning. You know, how do I position this as the premium product? Or how do I position this feature? Or how do I talk about my product along with somebody else's product? And, you know, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the positioning of you and yourself, of becoming that trusted advisor, becoming that consultant. You know, you're not showing product, you're not waiting around, you're not just answering off the top of your head because you feel like you need to provide an answer. It's asking questions, solving problems, bringing in expertise. One of the biggest takeaways I think from my conversations is that it seems that there's a lack of confidence. And so if you're not confident in it, it's very hard to present yourself as an advisor and as a consultant. And if you're not pitching yourself that way, you tend not to ask questions because you're afraid that they're going to ask questions that you can't answer. If they think I'm the consultant and then they ask me about something and I don't know the answer, then I'm going to look like an idiot. And so if you're not asking questions and kind of creating that dynamic, well, we're not uncovering projects and opportunities and different ways that we can help that architect. And so if we're not asking questions and uncovering challenges of the architect, we're not using the consults. And so after all of that, it's very hard to ever have acoustics and mode enter those conversations because again, it's cyclical. And kind of at the end of that, you know, process or that conversation, it's just going to lead you to kind of do that over and over again. Next. And this is what Dan was saying earlier. Credibility is humility. I don't know, but I'll find out. And like we said, ironically, it makes you more credible. It removes the risk for the designer. It signals honesty, triggers expert support. Then you have access to Casey and Daniel and Kevin and Anthony and Brock and all these people. And it builds long-term trust because if you're willing to say, you know, not quite sure about that. Let's bring someone in tomorrow and we'll answer that for you. So the top reps aren't positioning themselves as experts. They're positioning themselves as, I will help you solve this. You can rely on me. And at that inflection point of that conversation with a customer makes you 4 times more valuable. You know, when you say, let's bring in our acoustic expert and make sure we get this right, it does all of those things of why it works. And, you know, as we just learned from Daniel, recapping last session, it makes you exponentially more successful. You win more projects, and the projects that you do win are going to be bigger. So I guess kind of speaking of that, Daniel, without outing anyone, it'd be interesting to hear from you a time when someone guessed an answer that you heard about, or you were on the phone for, or you were in a presentation, or, you know, maybe they weren't completely honest or accurate, and it'd be just kind of interesting to hear how that turned out.
So I don't necessarily have a specific example about a question that was answered wrong. What I will say is there's a couple things that have popped up on here repeatedly. One is like, I don't know, I'll find out. And the other one that I saw earlier was we'll solution anything. We'll solve anything. And we do try to do that. And I know a lot of you have been on consults, or at least several of you have been on consults where they're asking us if we can do a certain thing with our acoustics, and we can build it in a certain way or solve a design challenge that they want to make acoustical. And we do our best to solve as many of those as we can. What I found is detrimental is just saying, because we have solved a lot of things in the past, there's certain people out there that have said, oh, we can figure it out, we've got it, no problem. And that's where it then started to create a little bit of a breakdown in that reliability, because the customer has a belief that, like, I'm going to get exactly what I want and they're going to be able to do it. And as we go through it, we either have to, it's either something that we can't do, or we have to change a little bit about what they're looking for and have them make some concessions to it. And once we start doing that, that can start to erode that. So we do try to solution and solve as many problems as we possibly can. We can't solve everything, and we can't build anything that people dream up, but we do our best to keep their design intent and give them something that's going to work, not only acoustically, but within their design intent. But that's one of the things that I would say is probably come up more than once, right? Is, hey, yeah, we can solve this 100%, and then we can't. So just being like, you know what, I'm not sure. Our team does a great job, and if anybody can figure it out, they can. But let's get them involved and let's talk about it. And the other thing that does is, if it can't be done, or there's something that we have to have concessions, we get the opportunity to educate them as to why, right? We can help explain what the challenges are to whatever it is we're trying to solve, and then help them understand those challenges. And then they're more willing to make a few concessions and make a project come together. So that's what I would say, is like, just the, like, oh, we can solve anything. We're going to try to solve anything and everything, but doesn't mean that we can.
Two up there. That's odd. Think or what?
Yeah.
So I don't know who's seeing what. Can you go back and come forward? Why is it not loading?
I don't know.
Hit it again.
Oh, yeah.
So-
Yeah.
This is what the process of a acoustic sale looks like. And show up is not be present. Show up is the italicized version. Show up for your customers. Ask questions, listen to what they're saying, identify some of what challenges they have, but also things that they love. Bring in experts when you need it. Do it early and often. Follow up with accurate, honest information, and repeat. If you go through this 10 times, that's when you start hearing what Daniel was saying earlier, which is a phone call of, hey, can you take a look at this project for me? I need a solution for it. And you're just the go-to person that they're going to copy and paste across. So yeah, show up consistently, ask them what they're working on, try to unlock something that you can help with, something's values-based. It doesn't have to be a project. It can be anything. Don't try to go about it yourself. You're not alone in the process. Bring in the big guns when you need them, and then follow up. So we're going to wrap this up. And every one of these, we're going to have an activate slide. Daniel had his activate slide in his consultations session. This is the activate for trust and positioning. So your takeaways, you don't need all the answers. You just know you can get them. Be confident that you know you can go get them. Consultations, you are not alone. We will do anything. If you can help you close a sale or provide some value in their lives, Daniel will hop on a call at 2 a.m. Use the team early, often, as much as you can.
Not at 2 a.m.
3 a.m. when he normally wakes up to go on his marathon run. Consistency, right? The third one. So confidence, consults, consistency, follow up, and speed equal trust. And if you gain trust, you'll gain opportunities. We are going to send out after this session, I think the beginning of next week, a 1-question, 10-second survey that we would love if everyone would fill out for us. And then we can review some of those answers that we get back in our third session. The fun part, Q&A. This doesn't have to be about trusted positioning. This can be about absolutely anything related to acoustics or the Mode brand. We have Keith, we have Mark, we have Daniel, we have everybody here. So we'd love to take some questions, and any question that you ask, I'm sure somebody else would like to know about. So,
Wendy, go ahead.
Hi, I think this was really great. Not just for Mode, but for everything.
Yep.
Just like rep training too. So that was really good. But I'd love to see Daniel in a superhero photo.
I'll do my best to make that happen. I don't know if he'll love it. You can be Aquaman with your long hair.
Yeah, maybe.
And you look like Jason Momoa from the neck down too.
Not quite.
Guys, I had a quick comment, and I thought as a foundation, this was a great start to this series. I think that's again what Whitney was alluding to. This is far-reaching, and it was a lot of what we found in our brand refresh and looking into behavioral science and really just those simple attributes of it is showing up, and it's showing up on time. It's doing what you say you're going to do and saying please and thank you. You will lap most of the competition if you do those 4 things. And I'd like to hear if anybody wants to offer any sort of conversation starter with customers. I've always found, and what you guys are, I love the content. I've always found that if you go in and present to them or ask them if they need acoustics, it's much different than if you start the conversation by saying, where are you having the most difficulty with noise in your facility? Right? You start with an opportunity rather than just kind of dangle it out there and say, hey, you need any acoustics right now? You ask them where they're having the most issues with noise. And I've always found it led to a meaningful conversation. Is anybody else finding, some good icebreakers, to go in and with what these guys are teaching today is building trust? Any comments on that? Well, they'll warm up, guys.
Yeah.
That's the first one.
No, I agree, Keith. Yeah, I think that just the fact that we have so many different solutions, it's always a good conversation starter about, how you can utilize our products in various different price points, and just asking them, what they're looking for, and try to tailor your conversation towards that instead of starting with, oh, we have wood. And, maybe they can't afford wood. So, you just move into, what their actual needs are.
Yeah. One thing that I think is a great one is just, have you thought about the acoustics of the space? Has that been addressed in your plans? Like, because a lot of times you're meeting there's different conversations with architects, designers, contractors, and users, right? You have different conversations with all of those different people, but especially with architects and designers, you have so many other products that you sell, and as they're having those conversations, just throwing in, like, have you thought about the acoustics of the space? Has that been addressed? And that can create a whole nother conversation. Maybe they have, and it's products that we could supply that they don't even know we can supply. Maybe they haven't thought about it at all, and it sparks a different conversation of like, well, we haven't thought about it. Do you think there's going to be an issue? And then that's when you can be like, if there's a lot of hard surfaces, it could be. We'd love to have a consultation call with our experts. They can talk about that. So just that question of like, have you thought about the acoustics in this space when you're talking about other products, can be something that, it is a great way to let them know that you offer it without trying to be a hard sales pitch. You're just asking about everything in the project, right? You're showing that you have, that you want to make sure that their project is complete and great when it's finished, right? So it creates another level of trust in there that just answering their questions about what they're specifically asking for can't always do.
I did trends research for our annual plan. And one trend that's happening right now is acoustics is moving from an interior object to a building product. So it's moving from the chair at a desk to on par with the 2x4s and the concrete and the must-haves of a space. And so to Daniel's point, there's a lot of folks who are doing that right now and considering the kind of the human experience of those spaces much earlier in the process. Like Keith doing a lot of marketing stuff, I do a bunch of lunch and learns. And when I end my lunch and learns, one of the questions that I will just start the conversation with, because it can get kind of tight in the room and everyone's eating and whatever, is what was the last project that you specified acoustics for? And then it breaks into this whole conversation. Then you can break in what manufacturer they used, what products they used, what they liked, what they didn't like. And then again, it's unlocking the conversation so then you can start helping to provide value for them. To Daniel's point, you can start talking about maybe the different felt that we have or the comparison of fabric wrapped panels to wood panels or whatever it's going to take to continue that conversation with people and earn that kind of trusted advisor status.
So other questions, there's got to be questions. And again, it doesn't have to be trust and reliability. You've got us here to answer any of the questions that you guys have out there. Okay, we've done a perfect job.
Tell that to Kevin.
So there's two people on here that it somehow logged them in as moderated contributors, Atoya and Jennifer. So nobody was invited in a different manner. So I'm not sure why you've been silenced. But Jennifer Sampson just sent over something. Let's see. Oh, she likes to start the conversation by discussing how they determine their acoustic needs. And again, I love that approach because in a lot of situations, you're asking them a yes or no question. Do you use acoustics? Okay, well, you're giving them an out. When you say, how do you select acoustics? All of a sudden, you've gotten them talking about how they select acoustics. So that is fantastic advice, Jennifer. And she's saying, yeah, it takes guesswork. Yep.
Yeah, it's like going to therapy, right? Good open-ended questions, not do you like acoustics?
Right. How do you select your acoustics?
Yeah.
If there's no other questions, I'll give you guys a couple more moments here to ask any questions you got, and then I have a story I want to kind of finish off with, but questions first.
Dan, we've got tons coming up. If anybody has a last question, throw it out there, and then we'd love to wrap up on a story. Yep. Yeah.
So, the project that we had, it kind of is about trust and reliability. The product that was specified was out of Canada, and they were having trouble with the new tariffs. Moderating their cost overruns and everything, and so the rep got in with, hey, we have a solution that we could possibly solve for you. And it went from the consult started out with, hey, can we use your product? Is it going to be sufficient to do this? By the end of the consult, we had provided such education and asked so many questions that they hadn't thought about. It was a wood project. So there was sequencing questions about the veneer selection they had, about the cuts that they wanted, and about sequencing. And we educated them on how different types of projects are going to look and when and why and how you sequence. That by the end of the project, by the end of the consult, we had kind of shaped them into selecting a different cut, a different match, to align with what would make the project easier to produce as well as install. But also, we had got to the point where they were so comfortable with us that it wasn't, yes, they'll work, you can use them. It was, no, we're not using the other company, we're using them. And they had another project that was out that another different manufacturer that was going to do in the US, and they told that project and that whole team, no, you're not going to use that other stuff. You have to go with Mode. They have to build this product. And we didn't even ask about it. We didn't even talk about it. We just built so much trust and reliability in that hour-long meeting that they knew that their end finished product and their project, when it was all complete, that having us do that project for them was going to give them the best result. And so they went to another project and said, this one's going to be the same. Both of those, one of them was over 500,000 and one of them was just under. So two really large projects that came about, and now we've created a point where anything that they're going to use wood on moving forward with this firm, they're not going anywhere else, right? They're coming to us and us only. So that's the value of creating those. And it started with the rep being like, hey, I think we have a product that can work. Hey, can it do this, 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 and this? Hey, let's get a call. Let's schedule a call and get with the experts. And then we come in and we ask all the right questions. We educate them in ways no other manufacturer will educate them, and then build that trust with them. So, Whitney, you raised your hand.
I couldn't find my hand fast. I'm sorry. Stories.
Oh.
What do you see are like the
Sorry, you're kind of cutting
Can you
out.
hear me?
Yeah, I didn't hear that either.
Maybe throw it in the chat if.
okay? Can you now?
It's still kind of freezing up on us.
Yeah,
There's
write
the
it,
chat.
yeah, write it in the chat. We can see the chat.
Geez.
Your picture stopped freezing. We might be able to hear you now.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I don't know what's going on. So what are the top 3 spaces or end uses that you guys have consultation calls for that actively come as projects?
Probably the biggest ones that the top 3 spaces that we have consults about, and this just might be, these are the top 3 types of spaces that require acoustics as well, but auditoriums for, schools or meeting spaces or colleges, auditoriums is one. The one that is coming up that is getting more and more and more frequent, and probably the number one, I would say, opportunity for us, because it's not been thought of in the same ways it is now, is retirement communities and retirement spaces, whether it's a live-in facility, it's a large facility where they have their own homes and they're doing the meeting spaces, that kind of stuff. So the retirement space is huge and growing, is probably the biggest growing one, and we're doing more and more and more of those. And then the last one is typically, I don't know if there's really a third space that we see a lot of it. After that, it just kind of gets very sporadic. It's gymnasiums, it's conference rooms, it's open office plans. Those are kind of some of the other ones that really come up quite often.
So what about the ones that are coming through with purchase orders and production?
In the
Would you
same,
say that would be auditoriums still?
be the same thing, yeah. A lot of auditoriums. So both of the project I was talking about, both of them had auditorium spaces in it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I never thought of senior living spaces to be very
Senior living, that was the term I was.
Yeah, it's interesting. I never thought that senior living spaces are almost identical to any hospitality space, whether it's a hotel or a restaurant. They have all of those things. They have a performance space, they have an art space. So it's actually right in National's wheelhouse, which is interesting.
Yeah, and from a hospitality standpoint, a lot of those other places, hotels, they'll, sometimes cut. It depends on what level of hotel it is, right? Acoustics is important, but bottom line's more important. Restaurants, acoustics is important, but bottom line's more important. But what we're finding is these senior living spaces, they're more and more willing to spend the money on acoustics because it's what's important to their clientele. A lot of their clientele is hard of hearing, have issues already, and so they want to solve that. And by offering premium products that become design aesthetics as well, they're willing to spend that money on it. And we see that market as one that is really growing, and one that if you have contacts in that space, it's something that you really need to be kind of having those conversations about.
Good stuff. Good question, Whit.
Yeah. Even I learned something, and I'm a genius.
Well, thank you guys. We really appreciate it. Again, we're going to be doing these sessions every 2 weeks. We're going to kind of alternate. We'll do sessions like these, and then next week we'll do more of a technical one, where we'll talk about products and plans and different things like that. Next week, we're going to be talking, or in 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about wood, kind of the wood basics of acoustics, and a lot of the common themes that keep coming up in all of our wood projects, and how we can help leverage our wood line. So
Tell all your friends and colleagues to join us in 2 weeks. The more the merrier. Then we get great engagement and great questions, and everybody learns, including Daniel.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. Thanks so much.